Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown.
And I am Matthew Stockton, not Stockton Rush.
Not Stockton Rush. We'll get into that. So you just got back from Ontario. You had a bit of a trip, saw your mom.
Yeah, I did some work stuff, saw my fam. Now I'm back.
There you go. Well, welcome back to the hood.
Thank you. It was fun getting back with airlines on strike.
Both right. That was a bit of a struggle. The timing was bad, but I kind of agree with what they were on strike about.
Oh, I think the timing was great. When you strike to get noticed when it's the height of summer season.
Yeah, there's that too.
I'm at the point where if any union ever wants to strike, I'm like, go for it.
Well, there you go.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of CuriousCast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
On June 18th, 2023, 5 people boarded the experimental Titan submersible for what was meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime voyage to the wreck of the Titanic, resting nearly 4 kilometers beneath the North Atlantic. Less than 2 hours into the descent, all contact with the surface vessel was lost. Over the following days, searchers scoured the area, but hopes for a rescue faded quickly. When remotely operated vehicles finally reached the seabed, they found the Titan reduced to scattered fragments, the result of a catastrophic implosion. Aboard were Oceangate CEO and pilot Stockton Rush, 61, British businessman Hamish Harding, 58, French Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 77, and Pakistani father and son Shahzada Dawood, 48, and Suleman Dawood, 19. All were killed instantly. The tragedy was more than a mechanical failure. It was the predictable endpoint of choices made in the name of speed, cost-cutting, and personal conviction. Stockton Rush, known for his disdain of traditional safety certification and regulations, saw himself as a pioneer willing to break rules to push exploration forward. Critics, including seasoned engineers and submersible experts, had warned for years that the Titan's unconventional carbon fiber hull and testing regime were insufficient for repeated extreme depth dives. Rush dismissed those concerns as obstacles to innovation. In the unforgiving environment of the deep ocean, where physics allows no room for error, that hubris proved fatal, not only for him but for everyone who trusted him with their lives. This is Dark Poutine episode 383, The Darkest Depths, the Titan Submersible Tragedy. The story of the Titan's destruction emerges from a patchwork of hard evidence, expert analysis, and the voices of those who saw warning signs long before June 18, 2023. Detailed findings from the National Transportation Safety Board's Materials Laboratory reports 24-011 and 24-012 describe a hull riddled with delaminations, adhesive failures, and signs of progressive weakening across repeated deep dives. In August of 2025, the U.S. Coast Guard's Marine Board of Investigation placed these technical failures within a broader context of operational decisions and corporate culture, revealing how the vessel's design and maintenance left little margin for error. Survivor accounts from earlier dives spoke of strange noises, unsettling hull creaks, and abrupt changes in strain readings. Events later echoed an expert commentary that warned of the risks inherent in unproven materials and methods at extreme depths. Together, these sources paint a stark picture. This was not a freak accident, but the culmination of identifiable hazards ignored until the ocean claimed its due.
You know, what stands out to me here is how thin the line can be between sort of vision and recklessness.
Mm-hmm.
History is chock full of people who push past convention and change the world. But it's also like full of those who ignored limits and paid the ultimate price.
Yeah.
The deep ocean, unlike in business or politics, there's no margin for bravado, right? Physics is unforgiving, and no amount of charisma or conviction can sort of bend the rules of physics. You can try, but it's not going to work.
Well, I mean, you know, we're seeing a lot of anti-science stuff that people are using charisma against right now. So
yeah.
And
I like that line, the ocean claimed its due. There's something really chilling in that, right? It reminds me of that tragedies like this are rarely sudden bolts out of the blue, right? More often, they're the end result of decisions and patterns that seemed small at the time, but which stacked up to this inevitability. And so when people say, how could this have happened? You know, the harder truth usually is that there were warning signs all along and just nobody would listen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like watching a car crash. You know, you see the car coming, the two cars coming together. And
if you're like on the corner and the one can't see the other and you can see it.
Yeah. But there were people who saw this coming. And
we're going to talk about, dude, he was pretty clear as well.
Yeah. To understand why Stockton Rush and his passengers were descending toward the ocean floor that June morning, it's necessary to look back more than a century to the ship that drew them there. The wreck of the Titanic was not just a destination, it was a symbol, a siren call for explorers, filmmakers, scientists, adventurers, and storytellers alike. Its story, steeped in both tragedy and technological ambition, became the backdrop against which the Titan's fate would be written. In the early hours of April 15, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the largest and most luxurious ocean liner of its day, slipped beneath the frigid waters of the North Atlantic after striking an iceberg on her maiden voyage. More than 1,500 people lost their lives in one of history's most infamous maritime disasters, leaving behind a legacy of human tragedy, engineering hubris, and enduring fascination. For decades, the exact resting place of the ship remained a mystery, hidden almost 4 kilometers below the surface. I love this Titanic story, really.
Yeah, and I think the reason why you like it and why so many people do is it's more than a shipwreck. It's kind of a mirror we hold up to ourselves. That's what it made it so engaging. So we see our ambition, our ingenuity, and our arrogance all at the same time.
Which is very much mirrored in this story.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what keeps drawing people back, right? It's not the wreck itself, but the cautionary tale that it represents.
Yep.
And it's haunting to think that more than a century later, another vessel with the same name and the same confidence and blind spots met its own end at the bottom. Well, it's now at the bottom of the ocean or pulled back up.
I saw a really interesting graph on a subreddit I follow. It's called Data is Beautiful. And it has the timeline from 1900 to 2023, say. And we see Titanic deaths in when the first Titanic deaths happened, and then the little blip when this story happened.
Years later.
Yeah.
Wait, what's that subreddit called? Data is
Beautiful. It's quite a good subreddit. You'd like it, yeah.
I would name it Insights Are Beautiful.
Oh, well, yeah, well, it's not your subreddit to name.
The data is just the data. It's the insights that are interesting.
Well, the data, that's why it's beautiful, because you look at the data and then you can have the insights after.
True.
The tale fascinated me as a child on Canada's east coast. Once, when we were boating, we discovered what appeared to be a wooden lifeboat flung from a ship, perhaps in a storm, floating at the mouth of the LaHave River. For safety's sake, so another pleasure boat did not crash into the derelict craft, Dad and his pal sidled up alongside the submerged boat, attached a tow rope, and brought it to shore. For some time, I would fantasize that the lifeboat had come from the Titanic herself, undiscovered at that point, and had floated unclaimed for decades waiting for us to find it. It seems silly to me now, but it was fun to ponder. In September 1985, a joint American-French expedition led by Dr. Robert Ballard located the wreck of the Titanic. The ghostly remains, split into two main sections and surrounded by a vast debris field, offered a haunting glimpse into the past and ignited a new era of deep ocean exploration. In the years that followed, the wreck of the Titanic became both a scientific treasure trove and a stage for high-profile visits. Filmmaker James Cameron, captivated by the ship's story, made more than 30 dives to the site, producing the 1997 blockbuster Titanic and later directing several documentaries that revealed unprecedented views of the vessel. These expeditions, requiring sophisticated submersibles and extensive funding, demonstrated that the ship could be reached if one had the technology and the will. Fewer people have seen the Titanic with their own eyes than have visited space. New technology has expanded access to the abyss, prompting both scientific missions and extreme tourism. High-net-worth individuals have joined expeditions seeking first-hand encounters with the wreck, often paying as much as $250,000 per seat. Professor James Petrick, an expert on tourism and recreation at Texas A&M, explained, "There have always been people who are wired to take risks. They just have more things to do now." The rise of extreme tourism is entwined with the story of the Titan's final voyage. In recent years, interest in high-stakes travel, whether climbing Everest, diving to shipwrecks, or visiting space with Jeff Bezos and Katy Perry, has exploded. The global adventure tourism market was valued at $322 billion in 2022 and is expected to surpass $1 trillion in the coming years. The demand for unique bucket list experiences is driven by a mix of new technology, post-pandemic urgency, and a culture that increasingly values memorable adventures over possessions. It was against this backdrop of awe, competition, and opportunity that Stockton Rush, an aerospace engineer turned deep-sea entrepreneur, began to see the wreck not just as a historical artifact but as a destination. To him, Titanic was the ultimate draw for paying passengers willing to embrace risk in exchange for the chance to touch history on the ocean floor.
This is where the story shifts from exploration to commerce a little bit, right? So there's always been an allure in making the inaccessible available, right? Climbing Everest, visiting space with Oprah's friend and that singer, right? Or descending into the abyss. But when those pursuits are turned into products and sold as experiences, this calculus kind of changes. Suddenly, it's not just about pushing boundaries. It's about whether the people enabling these adventures are honest about the dangers involved, right? And I feel for the people, but billionaires can really be wanky.
Yeah, they tend to believe their own BS a lot.
Yeah.
They think, well, I know better. I made myself this amount of money, so I know better than all of you.
Yeah.
So, okay, keep telling us that science isn't a belief. So here's something for people who might poo-poo science. Physics, which is the science we are discussing here, is one of the oldest academic disciplines. Its roots trace back to ancient natural philosophy and have grown through centuries of discoveries into a highly established and systematic field that underpins modern technology and understanding of nature. It's why you have a cell phone. Believing in science is like using a GPS during a road trip. Sure, you could ask directions from someone in a tinfoil hat or on TikTok, but you might never get there.
Right. And I don't know this guy. I don't know the billionaire. I don't know how he made his money. And I didn't want him to die being adventurous.
No, definitely.
But at the same time, it's a little bit like, oh my God, we all saw this coming, right? Like,
yeah. The more I read about this story, there's one word that keeps coming into my head.
Inevitable.
Hubris.
Okay, both.
Stockton Rush, born Richard Stockton Rush III on March 31st, 1962, in San Francisco, California, grew up surrounded by history and privilege. He was a direct descendant of two signers of the Declaration of Independence, Richard Stockton and Benjamin Rush, and his family lineage also included connections to American industry and philanthropy. From a young age, Rush aimed high, initially dreaming of becoming the first person to set foot on Mars. When eyesight problems closed the door on a military aviation career, he shifted his gaze to the other great frontier. "I wanted to be Captain Kirk, and in our lifetime the final frontier is the ocean," he said in a 2017 interview. He attended Phillips Exeter Academy, graduating in 1980, before earning a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering from Princeton University in 1984. That same year, he joined McDonnell Douglas as a flight test engineer on the F-15 program, gaining first-hand experience with high-performance military aircraft. By age 19, Rush had already become the world's youngest jet transport-rated pilot, a distinction that reflected his blend of technical skill and appetite for ambitious challenges. In 1989, he completed an MBA at the University of California, Berkeley, adding business acumen to his engineering credentials. That year, Rush moved to the Pacific Northwest, where he took over remote control technology, a Kirkland, Washington company specializing in wireless remote systems. Outside of work, he built his own experimental airplane and remained an active pilot. He had been an avid scuba diver since his teens, spending years exploring the Puget Sound before his attention turned to the far more hostile environment of the deep ocean. A 2006 dive in a privately operated submarine off the coast of British Columbia sparked a fascination with deep-sea exploration. Frustrated by the difficulty of acquiring a private submersible, he built a small one himself and scouted others around the world, laying the groundwork for his next venture. Rush's friends and colleagues continuously remarked on his remarkable combination of ambition and kindness. Stockton chose his path and pursued his dreams with passion. He loved and was loved. He lived the life he wanted, and it was a good life, a big life. "We will miss him," wrote college friends after his death. His adventurous spirit, intellectual rigor, and generosity were defining traits throughout his pre-Oceangate years. Oceangate expeditions began in 2009, launched by Stockton Rush and Guillermo Soenlein with a stated intent: to make the deep ocean accessible to researchers, explorers, and paying adventurers, with the stated mission of democratizing access to deep-sea exploration. The company developed manned submersibles, including the carbon fiber and titanium Titan. It offered paying clients the opportunity to visit the most inaccessible places on Earth, including the wreck of the Titanic. Stockton Rush was a pilot and engineer who described himself as someone drawn to frontiers. "Since I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, an explorer," Rush told Smithsonian Magazine in 2019. "I wanted to be Captain Kirk. I didn't want to be the passenger in the back, and I realized that the ocean is the universe on Earth." Rush was dissatisfied with the slow progress and high costs of traditional submarines. He set out to overhaul how submersibles were built and operated, hoping to open the deep sea to much broader audiences, not just governments and large academic institutions.
Yeah, and there's something undeniably seductive about that vision.
Sure.
Right? He's tearing down barriers. He's democratizing access to a realm that only a few elite explorers could have ever seen.
Yeah.
Right? But disruption, as Silicon Valley likes to call it, doesn't translate so neatly when lives hang in the balance, right? In
It's
tech,
true, yeah.
In tech, you can fail fast and break things. In the deep sea, failure is absolute and reversible, right?
Right.
Oh, our app didn't work. Let's fix it, right? Oh, the submarine imploded.
Elon Musk employs the same kind of Silicon Valley way of doing things too, the way he does things with SpaceX. He expects things to break so they can reiterate.
Yeah.
That's really expensive. I mean, it's not software. It's actual physical rockets. I see the vision behind it. Like I may be being a little short-sighted in that, but there are people starving all over the world. There are better ways to spend your billions and billions and billions of dollars. Anyway, I digress. The Titan was Oceangate's flagship, a 5-person sub with a hull made from carbon fiber and titanium, stretching 6.7 meters long. Its pressure vessel, crucially, featured a carbon fiber barrel reinforced with titanium end caps. The use of carbon fiber in deep-sea vessels was rare. The material, prized for its strength-to-weight ratio in aerospace, had not been widely tested for the crushing pressures of 3,800 meters below sea level. During the company's promotional videos, the Titan was lauded as the largest deep-diving submersible of its kind, able to reach depths of 4,000 meters, making it one of the few submersibles capable of accessing the Titanic wreck. Life support on board was designed for 96 hours with a rudimentary array of controls, the now infamous video game controller that Stockton Rush would show to guests. Titan's interior was Spartan, no seats, just a floor mat and a singular porthole 53 centimeters wide. Rush's philosophy clashed with marine engineering convention. Rather than seeking external certification, such as through the American Bureau of Shipping, ABS or DNV, he insisted on what he called an innovative approach. He described safety protocols in aviation and marine circles as wasteful, suggesting they stifled progress. You know, there's a limit. At some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. At some point, you're going to take some risk, and it really is a risk-reward question, Rush told CBS journalist David Pogue while touring Titan. This attitude extended to certification. By 2023, Titan had never been classed or certified by any central authority. Stockton Rush's philosophy, which rejected many conventional safety standards, would become a defining and ultimately fatal element of his career.
Now, I'm all for less bureaucracy and smaller government.
Sure. I am well aware of your bent in that direction.
But here's the hard truth, right? Safety standards aren't bureaucratic red tape designed to stifle creativity. They're actually hard-earned lessons written in blood by people who came before, right?
That's true.
And to treat them as obstacles to be outsmarted is to ignore the very reason they exist. And what might look like courage from one angle starts to resemble your word, hubris, at another.
Yep.
You know, it's my husband and I love watching these airline disaster shows.
Yeah, I like watching those too. You're on Amazon Prime, I bet.
That show like all the things, the lessons that were learned, so how they fixed planes, and that's why these things exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Warnings sounded from industry experts. A 2018 letter from the Marine Technology Society, MTS Submarine Committee, reported by the New York Times, cautioned Rush against the unproven carbon fiber hull, stating, if the Oceangate approach is not addressed as a matter of urgency, it might result in negative outcomes. Rush dismissed much of the criticism, stating in a podcast, I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur who said, you're remembered for the rules you break. Oceangate maintained that their internal engineering, including acoustic monitoring to listen for hull stress during dives, was sufficient. Despite more than a decade in operation and several dives to greater depths, Titan's core methods remained controversial in the undersea community. Between 2021 and 2022, Stockton Rush's submersible, the Titan, completed 13 successful dives to the Titanic wreck site. These missions were carried out over 2 seasons. They established the Titan as one of the only private submersibles to repeatedly reach the legendary ship, resting nearly 4,000 meters below the surface. Each dive was considered a technical feat, given the remote location southeast of Newfoundland and the daunting pressure at those depths. According to official sources, including the United States Coast Guard and international media, the submersible attempted 24 dives in total, with just over half resulting in successful visits to the Titanic. Despite numerous challenges, ranging from harsh North Atlantic weather to persistent technical issues, the Titan managed to reach the iconic wreck 13 times. The Titan's doomed descent began off the coast of Newfoundland, a province with deep historic ties to maritime exploration and the Titanic story itself. St. John's, Newfoundland often serves as a departure point for Titanic expeditions. The 2023 expedition was the first mission of that season. For Titan's fateful trip, Stockton Rush was at the helm, his PlayStation controller in hand. He was not alone. With him were 4 others. Paul-Henri Nargeolet was internationally recognized as one of the preeminent experts on the Titanic. A retired French naval diver and former commander in the French Navy, Nargeolet had made more dives to the wreck than anyone else. Over 35 since the site's discovery in 1985. Known as Mr. Titanic, he participated in major recovery missions, retrieving artifacts and mapping the wreck's ever-changing state. Nargeolet's relationship with the ship was both professional and deeply personal. He brought his decades of expertise and a passion for marine archaeology to every journey. In media interviews, he described his connection to the Titanic as enduring. A story of people, not just steel. He collaborated with explorers such as James Cameron and often lectured about lost voices and untold stories buried beneath the sea. Colleagues described Nargeolet as steady, methodical, and a man who found the greatest peace in the silence of the deep ocean. Nargeolet's expertise wasn't just academic. He guided crews and tourists, always emphasizing the sense of responsibility required on the ocean's floor. Speaking to Le Parisien before the Titan expedition, he said, "Every dive is different. With the Titanic, you always feel a presence. You don't forget that lives were lost here." Hamish Harding, a British businessman and veteran adventurer, was well known in the world of extreme travel. Owner of Action Aviation and a Guinness World Record holder for circumnavigating the globe via both airplane and submarine, Harding was constantly chasing new challenges. He had visited the South Pole, orbited Earth on Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin spacecraft, and dived to the Challenger Deep, the ocean's lowest point. Harding's life revolved around a spirit of curiosity and the next big risk. Days before the Titan dive, he posted optimistically on Facebook, "A weather window has just opened up, and we are going to attempt a dive tomorrow." Friends described Harding as fearless and always looking for ways to push the boundaries of exploration. He was also known for including his family in his adventures, passing on his curiosity to his children. One associate told The Guardian in June 2023, "Hamish was the kind of man who seldom sat still. If a challenge presented itself, he was first in line."
Hamish Harding's sort of embodiment of that restless adventure archetype is enthralling. And while we, that spirit can inspire us, it also raises the difficult question, and that's, when does the pursuit of personal challenge cross into sort of addiction to risk?
Right, yeah.
I'm looking at this guy kind of going, ooh, he's kind of addicted to this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And at what point is it less about curiosity and more about proving something to yourself or to the world, right? Like it starts to get into, I'm a big man, look what I can do, as opposed to actually being adventurous. Like, I'm sorry, buying a ticket into a fucking rocket that looks like a penis to go not really into space.
The Kármán line, not actually space,
is really, look what I did versus exploration. Come on. You want to explore, buy a ticket, go to Mars and try to settle it for us, right?
Katy Perry fell into a mud puddle the other day and now she's a deep sea diver, so. Shahzada Dawood, a British Pakistani businessman, and his son Suleman were among the 5 lost on the Titan. Shahzada served as vice chairman of Dawood Hercules Corporation, one of Pakistan's largest conglomerates. He advocated for science, education, and sustainable business, supporting global organizations devoted to environmental and social initiatives. In interviews, those close to Shahzada described him as both ambitious and thoughtful, a quiet supporter of both technological advancement and his family. Suleman, just 19, had recently completed his first year at university. Family members later revealed he was initially hesitant about joining the dive, wanting to please his father as a gesture for Father's Day, a detail reported widely after the disaster. The Dawoods' presence on the Titan brought the tragedy wider attention in both Britain and Pakistan, triggering waves of grief and reflection in their communities. The Dawoods embodied the risk and reward dynamic at the heart of extreme tourism. Friends expressed a sense of heartbreak for the pair, calling their journey at once brave and tragic.
Yeah, and what makes the loss kind of cut even deeper is that Suleman he doesn't seem like he was a thrill seeker, but by all accounts, he went on that dive because he wanted to please his dad on Father's Day.
Sure, he was there because it was his dad's interest, and he really wanted to be there for him,
Right, and that detail is sort of kind of the heartbreaking bit for me, right? It reminds us that behind headlines of douchey billionaires and adventurers, there are ordinary bonds of love and obligation and family, right?
Right.
And it's a reminder that no matter the scale of the technology or the wealth of those involved, the stories are always at their core human ones, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, because, you see all the memes of like orcas taking billionaire boats down and and it's like, yeah, that's kind of all fun. But, there's a tragic human element in all of this.
Right. The Titan submersible entered the water on June 18, 2023 at 8:55 a.m. Newfoundland Daylight Time. The launch platform was vented and Titan began its submersion. By 9:18 a.m., the submersible disengaged from the launch platform and started its descent toward the Titanic wreck site. No one aboard would again be seen alive. More after a quick break. And we are back. Matthew, thoughts on the halfway point of the darkest depths?
Yeah, I think we're getting into that point of inevitability in the show here, right? It's, so far it's been about the exciting possibility and the dreams of exploration, right? And, but, I keep coming back to this eerie symmetry between Titanic and Titan. Right?
Yeah, it's too crazy.
Both carry the promise of progress, the thrill of breaking barriers, right? But both ignored warnings that seemed inconvenient to some people, or maybe overcautious to some people, and both did not end in triumph, did they?
No. On the morning of June 18, 2023, the Titan submersible began its descent toward the Titanic wreck site from the support ship Polar Prince off the coast of Newfoundland. The 5 people on board, Stockton Rush, Hamish Harding, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, Shahzada Dawood, and his son Suleman, were monitored closely by the crew above. About 90 minutes into the dive, all communication with the Titan abruptly stopped. At 9:45 a.m. local time, contact was lost between the sub and its mothership. The crew aboard the Polar Prince did not immediately realize the severity of what had happened. At that precise moment, a loud bang reverberated through the pilot house. Witnesses, including Stockton Rush's wife, Wendy, had no idea she was hearing the fatal implosion happen more than 3,000 meters below her feet.
Imagine being Wendy and having heard that. And now, looking back, in hindsight, knowing what you heard.
Yeah, and, tragedy announces itself in ways that we can't yet interpret, right? Like sometimes if there's an explosion or a bang, like you don't know the results of it until later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for her to hear that and really have because it'd just be a boom, right? It wouldn't be anything dramatic. It'd be some little sound, right?
No, there wouldn't be like a lead up of music or anything like that. It's just, it's not a movie.
Wagner comes up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I you got to feel for her.
Absolutely, I do. The last message sent from Titan read, "Drop 2 weights." This was routinely done to adjust buoyancy as the sub neared the seabed and did not suggest imminent danger. Some experts, like James Cameron, believe this indicates the crew may have been trying to ascend from an emergency. However, testimony from crew and investigators, such as Tim Catterson, reveals there was no clear sign that those inside were aware of any problem before the fatal event. The message, seen in the pilot house video, was relayed by Wendy Rush after the bang as she tried to interpret what was happening below. Beneath the surface, the physical forces at play were enormous. The Titan's carbon fiber hull was subjected to crushing pressure, nearly 400 atmospheres at Titanic depth. Investigators later determined the hull lost structural integrity. The vessel failed in microseconds, collapsing instantly. Expert Bob Ballard explained, "There's no warning, no time to react. It happens faster than you can blink." NOAA released a chilling 20-second acoustic clip, recording a burst of static followed by a thunderous boom and utter silence, capturing the suspected moment of the implosion.
Yeah, I mean, this is not putting your head under the water in the bathtub.
No.
Right? And I think what Ballard's describing here underlines the brutal reality of the deep sea.
Yeah.
The absolute power of the deep sea is incredible, right? And when something goes wrong at that depth, there's no drama or no drawn out struggle. It's just done.
Yep.
And as horrific as that sounds, like in one way, it's a strange mercy. You know, they wouldn't have felt anything, just a vanishing, right?
Yeah. On the support ship, the mood shifted from routine monitoring to urgent concern. At first, surface crews hoped for technical difficulties, radio interference drifting out of range, but the lack of communication and absence of Titan's scheduled surface signals led to mounting fear. In the hours after the bang, Wendy Rush and others continued sending and relaying messages, unaware of the disaster that had occurred. The support vessels maintained hope Titan might reappear or regain contact, but the dreadful reality soon settled in. As the hours passed, the Polar Prince coordinated with Canadian and American search teams. Uncertainty, confusion, and growing dread marked the ship's atmosphere, while government authorities were notified only several hours after the last contact. The surface crew, isolated by distance and communication lag, waited anxiously. The discovery that Titan was missing began a 4-day search involving military, civilian, and international efforts. At 7:10 p.m. on June 18th, the U.S. Coast Guard was alerted. The vessel was equipped with enough air for roughly 96 hours, which set a grim deadline as crews scrambled to locate survivors. The search unfolded over a vast expanse of ocean, around 900 nautical miles from Cape Cod and southeast of Newfoundland. The U.S. Coast Guard, Canadian Coast Guard, Royal Canadian Air Force, U.S. Navy, and other agencies participated in the search using aircraft, ships, and remotely operated vehicles to go deeper more quickly than humans could. Commercial vessels and research ships equipped with sonar and deep-sea robots combed the surface and depths for any sign of the lost submersible. Low visibility, harsh weather, and rough seas made the search complicated. The search grid covered over 10,000 square miles, with assets arriving from as far as St. John's, New York, and Halifax.
So I'm going to go on a bit here, Mike.
This was a big one. This was a big search for these people.
The scale of that search speaks to more than just logistics, right? It kind of shows a desperation to cling to hope, even when real reasons suggested otherwise. You know, for days, the ships and the planes were fanning out across this sea.
I remember, yeah.
For me, it forces me to ask the uncomfortable question is why does the world mobilize fleets and millions of dollars when wealthy adventurers go missing, while dragging its feet when children disappear or when indigenous communities plead for help finding bodies of loved ones in garbage dumps?
Right. And this is what I was hoping that you would talk about.
And the thing is, just because there are poor people or just because there are issues doesn't mean every single thing to the planet goes to those issues immediately, because there's exploration, there's change, there's business and all that stuff, hopefully lifts people up. But this just kind of shines the light on the haves and the have-nots and what we do for people, right? So, this vast coordinated effort wasn't only about saving lives, it was also about whose lives those belong to and what that says about whose stories the world decides are worth telling. Right? And that kind of makes it bitter for me.
Even the Titanic story itself, those were a bunch of rich people on a boat as well.
Absolutely. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But, I'm sorry, if you're a billionaire risking your life, hey, I applaud you. Get on. Go have fun. But don't expect taxpayers to be trying to bind your body because, frankly, we don't care.
There you go. Oh, no. Hope flickered briefly after Canadian planes detected distinct underwater noises in the search area. The U.S. Coast Guard described these as banging sounds, and many speculated they could be signals from trapped crew knocking on the hull. The source of the noise was unknown and may have come from many metal objects at the site of the wreck, Rear Admiral John Mauger said in a press conference. The noises were later determined to be unrelated to Titan. The search effort rapidly attracted a global media frenzy, broadcasting live timelines and theories as families and the public hoped for a miracle. Scientists debated possible scenarios: survivors awaiting rescue in darkness, oxygen supplies dwindling, crushing pressure building. Government spokespeople emphasized rescue efforts rather than recovery. This is a search and rescue operation 100%, insisted Coast Guard staff. On June 22nd, debris from Titan was located on the ocean floor 500 meters from the bow of the Titanic by Pelagic Research Services Odysseus 6 KROV, deployed from the Horizon Arctic. The debris field included Titan's tail cone, landing frame, and external cover. The discovery offered irrefutable proof of the loss of Titan and the fatalities of the 5 individuals aboard, according to the U.S. Coast Guard's official statement.
Again, this is just highlighting disparity, right? When tragedies unfold in remote indigenous communities, or among vulnerable populations, family wait for years or forever without irrefutable proof.
Yep.
So here, the world marshaled the most advanced technology available to reach an answer within days. So the question is, who gets closure and who's left to live with endless uncertainty?
Yeah.
That says a lot about how value is assigned to human lives. You know what it's like? It's like the actual Titanic, where the first-class passengers got on the lifeboats first, and the poor people, they weren't all rich there, Mike.
No.
They were locked beneath.
Yep, they weren't given a chance to get onto the lifeboats.
This is the story of who's allowed on the lifeboats and not.
Yep. It's funny how nothing has changed
in
over 100 years.
I mean, nothing's changed in 5,000 years.
Yeah. All 5 passengers on board had died instantaneously during the catastrophic implosion. As the world mourned, the focus shifted from rescue and recovery to investigation. The Coast Guard announced a Marine Board of Investigation. The event marked a defining moment for deep-sea tourism and exploration, a cautionary tale of risk, hope, and immense human loss. According to CBC, the Dawood family released a statement after the accident. We are truly grateful for the efforts of all involved in the search, and we continue to pray for the departed souls and their families. The initial investigation efforts began with a sense of urgency and gravity that matched the scale of the tragedy. Within hours of confirming Titan's catastrophic implosion, agencies on both sides of the Atlantic mobilized. The U.S. Coast Guard established a Marine Board of Investigation, the highest-level inquiry for maritime disasters in the United States. Rear Admiral John Mauger, who led the Coast Guard's public briefings, explained, "Our focus now is on understanding the circumstances that led to this event so that we can learn and increase safety for future endeavors at these depths." The board's goals were clear: examine Titan's design, Oceangate's operational protocols, the timeline of the disaster, and the broader regulatory environment for submersibles. If there's going to be a business around submersibles going deep into the ocean and looking at shipwrecks and carrying passengers, consumer people, I think this is the right way to go. I mean, if it's going to be a business, let's make sure that it's a safe one.
Hey, if you're going to do it on your own, whatever.
Right.
But if you're going to start pulling other people into it and making it a business, then there has to be some regulation, right?
Absolutely.
Either that or like sue the hell out of people.
Yeah, well, that's probably happening too. I don't necessarily know. That may be happening behind the scenes.
When disasters like this happen, it's great. They're looking for answers and blueprints and protocols and the fine print of regulations, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But what these investigations often uncover is something harder to quantify, and that's culture, right? The company culture.
Sure.
What beliefs and behaviors that live inside the organization. what they are, because they matter as much as any technical drawing, right? In Titan's case, culture, not just design, was really the fault line.
Who's the piper that plays the tune of culture in every company? The CEO usually.
Yeah, often it's me, but usually it's the CEO.
The CEO tasks you to come up with the words for them.
Absolutely, right? Because culture is actually, you've worked in big companies. I've worked in, culture is really important.
Well, it depends on the ego of the CEO, too, whether or not they're going to involve someone like you or me to help with the direction, because a lot of them aren't interested. And it sounded like Mr. Rush may not have been interested in input.
He wouldn't have been. I've worked with a lot of good companies that put emphasis on the importance of culture as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Me too, yeah. Motivated by the theory that society tends to prioritize the lives of the wealthy over those of the marginalized, I wanted to investigate which search effort was more costly. The high-profile rescue mission for the Titan Submersible, which carried several billionaires, or the search for the remains of missing Indigenous women in a Winnipeg area landfill. The landfill search was launched after police suspected that victims, including Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron, had been disposed of there by a serial killer in 2022. Undertaken amid both institutional reluctance and demands for justice, the search aimed to bring closure to grieving families and communities, even as feasibility and safety concerns were raised. To my surprise, the findings challenged some common assumptions. Global News reports that the Canadian cost for the Titan submersible search was approximately 3.1 million Canadian dollars, with the Washington Post noting an additional U.S. government expenditure of around 1.2 million U.S. dollars. In contrast, according to the Winnipeg Free Press and CBC News, the search for missing Indigenous women at the Prairie Green landfill totaled approximately 18 million Canadian dollars. Substantially more than the resources invested in the Titan operation. This outcome complicates the narrative that the pursuit for the wealthy inevitably attracts the most significant public investment, revealing a rare instance where society dedicated greater resources to seeking justice for its most vulnerable. The discrepancy in media coverage between these two searches is striking. The Titan submersible search became a global media sensation, dominating headlines and news cycles around the world with continuous updates, documentaries, and widespread social media discourse, including both public concern and a notable amount of ridicule directed at the billionaires aboard and at the vessel itself. Major international outlets and streaming platforms produced multiple films and documentaries soon after the event, and commentators such as Barack Obama called out how the submersible story dramatically overshadowed other parallel tragedies. By contrast, the landfill search for missing Indigenous women near Winnipeg received much more limited media attention, mostly from Canadian news outlets and advocacy groups. Coverage largely centered on the pain and activism of affected families, the difficulties in securing government support, and the broader issue of violence against Indigenous women, but it did not garner the same sustained high-profile or global attention as the Titan incident. This clear imbalance highlights how public and media priorities can amplify some tragedies while leaving others comparatively overlooked. After the Titan disaster, Canadian authorities, including the Transportation Safety Board and local law enforcement in Newfoundland, launched parallel inquiries. The Vessel Operations Center in St. John's became a hub for information sharing as rescue ships returned and investigators started interviews with crew and search participants. Captain Jamie Frederick of the U.S. Coast Guard confirmed joint cooperation, stating, "The Canadian Coast Guard was instrumental not only in the search, but in providing local knowledge and resources as we transitioned to investigation." In St. John's, crews from the Polar Prince, Horizon Arctic, and vessels involved in the search were debriefed. Investigators asked for technical details, operational logs, maintenance records, and first-hand accounts from crew members who exchanged the last messages with Titan. The support ship Polar Prince, still carrying somber reminders of the disaster, was carefully combed for clues, audio logs, video feeds, and even surface-level acoustic recordings. Simultaneously, attention turned to the debris field located by Pelagic Research Service's remotely operated vehicle. Pieces of Titan, including the tail cone and landing frame, were recovered and shipped to a secure facility in St. John's. Forensic teams, joined by engineering experts from the US, Canada, and the UK, worked methodically to analyze the wreckage. They sought answers in every crumpled fragment, aiming to determine the sequence and mechanics of failure. James Cameron, a vocal critic and Titanic expert, told the BBC, "The implosion must have happened in microseconds. We want to know how, and more importantly, why." Public interest in the investigation was immediate and intense. Oceangate's operations, once shrouded in commercial confidentiality, became a focal point for journalists, specialists, and survivors' families. All eyes turned to the regulatory oversights that allowed Titan to operate without class certification and the unusual engineering choices in its carbon fiber hull. Online forums debated technical minutiae, while major news outlets ran expert opinion pieces dissecting the risks of deep-sea tourism. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, assisted by British and French navies, traced Titan's manufacturing and maintenance history. They requested test data, supplier records, and executive correspondence from Oceangate's headquarters in Everett, Washington. The internal email exchanges and technical memos became vital in reconstructing the months leading up to the disaster. Interviews with surviving crew on the support vessels unearthed key evidence. Crew recalled the sound that reportedly marked the moment of implosion, a sharp metallic bang that gave no hint of distress from below. Wendy Rush, Stockton Rush's wife, and a participant in the search monitoring, provided a poignant account to investigators. Footage captured her confusion in the moments after contact was lost. "What was that bang?" she asked, not realizing she had just heard the event that would end her husband's life.
I know we talked about it before, but I wanted to include that quote. She knew it was something, but she didn't know what.
And that's sort of capturing the awful limbo of a sudden tragedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
When the mind hasn't quite caught up to the reality that your heart's going to carry forever.
Yeah.
As the investigation deepened, families were kept informed through regular updates. The Dawoods, Hardings, and Nargeolet's loved ones received briefings directly from Coast Guard officials. Officials were measured and transparent, careful to distinguish technical speculation from fact. The inquiry soon revealed troubling signs beyond engineering failure, repeated warnings unheeded, regulatory gaps, and stories from Oceangate's workforce hinting at internal discord. The tone of official statements shifted, reflecting a broader sense of accountability. This is not merely an accident. It points to a potential pattern, a failure to respect the voices inside and outside the organization, noted Jason Neubauer, chair of the Coast Guard's Marine Board. The world's focus, once riveted on rescue and recovery, moved inexorably toward questions of responsibility. Legal experts anticipated lawsuits, regulatory changes, and criminal liability. The disaster prompted calls for stronger oversight by international maritime bodies, echoes of reforms that followed the Titanic's sinking a century earlier. For days and weeks after Titan was found, investigators pieced together timelines, data, and testimony. Each revelation in the inquiry cast new light on decisions made inside Oceangate. The culture that allowed risk to flourish unchecked would soon emerge as the defining backdrop to Titan's fate, marking the shift from tragedy to reckoning. Inside Oceangate, several former employees painted a picture of a workplace where questioning CEO Stockton Rush, especially on safety, carried immediate severe consequences. The U.S. Coast Guard's Marine Board of Investigation described the atmosphere as a toxic workplace environment which used firings of senior staff members and the looming threat of being fired to dissuade employees and contractors from expressing safety concerns. The report concluded that this culture was a crucial factor in the implosion of the Titan submersible.
There's the culture word again. So
Right.
Culture is invisible until it isn't, right?
Right.
Inside Oceangate, ambition and loyalty to Rush's vision were prized, and it sounds like skepticism was punished.
Right.
And that kind of environment creates silence, and silence can be deadly. If engineering is the hardware for safety, then culture is kind of the software, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And when either is failing, the system collapses, and that's what we saw here.
Exactly. Former Oceangate Director of Marine Operations David Lockridge became one of the most well-known whistleblowers. Lockridge repeatedly warned Rush and executives about potential flaws in the sub's carbon fiber hull. He described in Coast Guard testimony, "I knew that hull would fail. It's an absolute mess." Lockridge filed a formal report and argued during a contentious 2-hour meeting with Rush that their acoustic monitoring system could only detect deadly problems milliseconds before an implosion and pressed for unmanned hull testing. According to internal correspondence reviewed by the media, Rush refused Lockridge's requests, saying at the meeting's end, "I have no desire to die. I think this is one of the safest things I will ever do." End quote.
Famous last words.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Lockridge's testimony really is kind of haunting because it shows just how clear the danger really was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't hedging or speaking in hypotheticals. He was saying outright that the hull would fail.
Right.
And when someone raises the alarm that plainly is ignored, it turns a tragedy into inevitability.
Sadly, yeah. Following Lockridge's persistent warnings, Oceangate terminated him. The company then threatened legal action unless he withdrew a complaint to U.S. safety authorities, attaching a draft lawsuit and a demand that he pay Oceangate's legal fees if he did not comply. Investigators found that the cumulative effect was an authoritarian and toxic culture where safety was not only deprioritized but actively suppressed. This toxic environment, characterized by retaliation and belittling against those who expressed safety concerns, combined with a lack of external oversight, set the stage for the Titan's ultimate demise. End quote. Documented examples extended beyond one employee. The Coast Guard reported that firings of senior staffers and the looming threat of being terminated were tactics to silence dissent across the organization. One former employee told investigators, "The company was economically very stressed, and as a result, they were making decisions that compromised safety." Rush's role was singular. The report noted he acted as the company's CEO, safety officer, and primary submersible pilot, often bypassing protocols and ignoring the concerns of other experienced Oceangate employees and contractors. End quote. The investigation into Oceangate and the Titan disaster unveiled a troubling story about risk, accountability, and a culture shaped by one man's influence. Stockton Rush's leadership style dominated the workplace. Employees described an environment where questioning his decisions, especially on safety, could lead to immediate dismissal or legal threats. This approach, detailed by the U.S. Coast Guard Marine Board of Investigation, discouraged staff from voicing concerns. Firings and the threat of job loss kept experienced engineers and submersible operators silent. David Lockridge, the former director of marine operations, became a central figure in the inquiry. He repeatedly warned that Titan's design choices, specifically its carbon fiber hull and the reliance on acoustic monitoring instead of comprehensive testing, posed grave dangers. The board's chair, Jason Neubauer, summed up the investigation with direct words. It all came back to Mr. Rush. The most astonishing aspect of the inquiry is how far out of compliance the Titan was operating and for how long. That fact stands out to me more than any other incident I've ever investigated. End quote.
That just shows that one man's charisma and vision and stubbornness overrode an entire organization's safety.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, back to leadership. It's a reminder that leadership is never neutral.
No.
Right? It can be a strong safeguard, or it can be the single point of catastrophic failure.
The results were recorded in the inquiry's final report. Oceangate's internal hierarchy, rituals, and communications reinforced Rush's authority, making disagreement a nearly unforgivable offense. The workplace culture deprived the organization of critical internal checks, something standard in high-risk industries. When the accident occurred, the official narrative and survivor testimonies aligned. Warnings had gone unheard, risk assessments had been short-circuited, and the burden of responsibility lay heavily on decisions made from the top.
It's like Oceangate stripped all oversight and independent voices away. What he did is, it's like flying a jet with no co-pilot, no traffic control, no maintenance checks, just faith in the pilot's confidence, right? It's just insanity. Like this, it's absolutely insane. Like, you got to look at this and go, how did they not realize that this was going to happen?
Good question. Well, some people did, but he fired those people. So,
Yep.
investigators noted that a lack of external oversight and the isolation of critical voices contributed directly to Titan's failure. The aftermath brought renewed calls for regulation and review of adventure tourism and deep-sea expeditions worldwide. The story of Titan was not just about technology and ambition, but about corporate culture and the suppression of expert feedback. The lessons are clear. When expertise is silenced and risk management is sacrificed in favor of charisma or speed, disaster can follow. Multiple agencies and family advocates expressed hope that the tragedy would lead to stronger protections for explorers and workers. The Dawood family's message, which thanked those who searched for Titan and mourned the loss, underlined the human cost behind the headlines. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 383, The Darkest Depths, the Titan Submersible Tragedy.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
Alrighty, let's listen to some voicemails. Matthew.
Okie dokie.
Hey there, guys. It's Emily from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I heard your podcast today about Sandy Cove, and it was just such a coincidence. It was one of my closest friends died quite suddenly a couple weeks ago, and in her obituary that I will email over to you, she mentioned that being her favorite place, and it was just funny to see her being in the universe again. So I just want to say thank you for releasing the episode, and like I said, I'll be sending that obituary so you guys can see it. So love to my friend Freya, who's not with us anymore, and thank you guys for everything you do.
Well, thank you so much. And I was really sad when I read the obituary that she sent. The obituary is for a young lady named Morgan Margaret Burchell McMaster, and she was 30 years old, 1995 to 2025.
Too young.
Yeah, well, she was actually 29. She was known to her friends as Freya, passed away peacefully at home on July 22nd. And Morgan was beautiful, wildly creative, an intelligent soul who made friends wherever she went. She was our quirky little shining star and the loveliest of people. When Morgan loved, she loved with her whole self. Morgan had a generous heart, was quick to forgive, and always ready with a kind word. She loved small things, such as her poetry, cross-stitching, family, friends, along with every cat she ever met. So Morgan and I would have been good friends because I am along those lines. I mean, that's just a brief excerpt of her obituary. So we're sorry, so sorry for the loss of your friend, Morgan, or Freya, as you refer to her. And our best wishes and thoughts are with you.
That's a good obituary. She sounded like a lovely human being.
Yeah, I looked at her Instagram. I sort of dug around a little bit and found her Instagram, and she seemed like she was suffering for some time with something, but debilitating. I don't want to get into it or make assumptions because she never talked about what it was, but she was really not well. So hopefully, her family can find some peace, and I'm sure they miss their daughter and their friend. We had another voicemail, but it was from a homophobe, and I'm not going to play it anyway. Yeah, that's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. Alrighty, it's time for Patreon and Donut Money donors. We do have a patron this week, and that person's name is Anna Munoz from Prince George, British Columbia. Prince George. My friend Art lives in Endako, and I always say, how do you get to Endako? And he says, go to Prince George and turn left. I saw him yesterday at a funeral. So anyway, yeah. So Anna from Prince George. I wonder what Anna does up there in northern British Columbia. Well, sort of middle British Columbia.
How long is it
north of us?
How long is the drive to Prince George from here?
About 10 hours, maybe 11.
Okay, that's a hefty drive.
It's a bit of a haul. Yeah, yeah, it's a bit of a haul.
I know. I think Anna owns a bakery up there.
That's nice.
I like bakeries.
I love the smell of a bakery. When you walk by like an old school mom and pop bakery and you smell like the stuff, the scent emanating from there, it's always so pleasant to me. So thank you, Anna, and we'll come and have maybe a croissant.
I want a croissant.
Or a cinnamon roll. Oh, boy. Okay. Next up, we have somebody from Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Winnipeg.
And her name is Zara Pople. Pople. Zara. And Zara says, Donut Money, enjoying the show in Manitoba, always thoughtful and interesting. Great work, and thanks for keeping me entertained.
Thank you, Zara, from Winnipeg.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Zara, what on earth does she do for a living, Matthew? It's got to be something fantastic.
It's actually easy.
Okay. All right.
Everyone, in my mind, everyone named Zara is an architect.
Mm-hmm.
Is an architect.
An architect? Like, why is that?
Zara just sounds like an architect's name to me.
It's a fancy name. It really is a fancy name, Zara.
Zara.
I think of mediumship and fortune telling and all that kind of stuff.
Of course you would.
Yeah, because I'm a bit of a fruit bat in that way.
You are. No, architect.
Okay. And has she done anything really interesting in that profession?
Nothing you'd know.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
I'm too simple to understand the complexities.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Zara. We really appreciate it. Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal or interact using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my 2 books are available to order via links on the Dark Poutine website or anywhere fine books are sold. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you gave Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
A big gay goodbye to everyone.
A big gay goodbye from Matthew. Oh, yes. Oh, 2 men kissing. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
I'm not kissing you. Gross. Get away from me.
I'm not your type. Bye, everybody.
Jesus Christ, Mike.